Last year, I found a nursery built for my unborn daughters inside a storage unit on Route 9. There was a double crib, tiny newborn clothes, a rocking chair, a little sheep-shaped lamp, and clouds painted across the wall. But the thing that made my blood run cold wasn't the nursery. It was the two names written beneath those clouds: Harper, Hazel. The names my husband and I had chosen for our unborn twin daughters. Names I had told only one person: my mother. When Detective Moss asked if I recognized the handwriting beside them, I did. It belonged to my older sister, Melissa. That was when my knees gave out. But by then, the nursery was only the final piece of a nightmare that had been building around me for 9 months. My name is Kendra Hensley. I was a pediatric nurse in Springfield, Missouri. My husband, Travis, owned a small heating and cooling company, and for years we lived a quiet life in a little brick house on Maplewood Drive. We had spent 2 painful years trying to have children. Treatments failed. Money disappeared. Hope became something we were afraid to touch. I told only my mother. I trusted her completely. That was my first mistake. My family had always revolved around my older sister, Melissa. Somehow everything was always about her. My birthday could be forgotten because Melissa felt sick. My achievements could be dismissed because she needed attention. After our father died, I became the responsible one. I handled paperwork. I helped Mom. I stayed strong. I thought being needed meant being loved. I didn't realize I was teaching my family that I could be hurt without ever being allowed to complain. Then Melissa announced she was pregnant. Everyone celebrated. I tried to be happy for her. Then, in December, after 2 years of heartbreak, I took a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. Travis and I cried on our kitchen floor. Weeks later, the ultrasound revealed something even more unbelievable. Twins, 2 girls. We named them Harper and Hazel. We decided to keep the pregnancy private until after the first trimester. Eventually, I told my mother and begged her not to say a word. She promised. At Melissa's baby shower, nearly 30 relatives gathered around balloons, cake, and gifts. Then my mother stood up with a glass in her hand. She smiled and announced that there would soon be even more blessings because I was carrying twins. The room went silent. Melissa stood. She grabbed the cake knife and pointed it directly at my stomach. She screamed that it was her day. Then she leaned toward me and whispered, "You stole my life. You stole my babies." I left with Travis. The next morning, my mother called. I expected an apology. Instead, she told me Melissa was fragile and that I had chosen the wrong time to announce my pregnancy. That was the moment I stopped trying to keep the peace. I opened a notebook. Dates, times, witnesses, exact words, everything went in. Then the strange things started. Funeral lilies appeared at my house. Newborn diapers arrived that I had never ordered. Someone called my hospital asking about my work schedule. Then I saw Melissa at my prenatal clinic. She wasn't supposed to be there. She simply smiled at me. A few weeks later, my mother announced that Melissa had lost her baby at 36 weeks. No hospital details, no funeral, no questions allowed. Then Mom began telling me my unborn twins were all Melissa had left. She wanted Melissa at my appointments, at the delivery. She even wanted Melissa involved in naming my daughters. I finally said no. 2 days later, my mother casually mentioned that my 26-week appointment had gone well. I had never told her about it. That was when I knew someone was accessing my medical information. With help from attorney June Albright, I tested the leak. I gave my mother one false detail about my delivery hospital. 2 weeks later, Melissa posted online mocking people who thought they were too good for that hospital. The pipeline was proven. My mother had access to my patient portal through an old proxy authorization. Over 8 months, she had accessed my records 31 times. Then Blake, Melissa's husband, contacted me secretly. He told me the truth. Melissa had actually lost her baby months earlier, at 17 weeks. The family had hidden it. She had suffered 4 previous pregnancy losses too. But the worst part was this. Melissa had become convinced that my daughters were supposed to be hers. Suddenly, the knife made sense. The stalking made sense. The gifts made sense. But understanding someone does not make them safe. One night, our security camera caught someone trying to enter our backyard. Then a box appeared outside our door. Inside were two tiny yellow outfits. One said Harper, the other said Hazel. Both names had been embroidered by hand. Police became involved. I eventually gave birth to my daughters at Mercy General. Hospital security protected us. I thought it was finally over. It wasn't. 3 months later, a state investigator arrived because someone had anonymously reported that I was neglecting my newborn daughters. The report contained details about my work schedule and even the layout of my house. It was completely false. Then Detective Moss called. There was a storage unit on Route 9 property connected to my family. When Travis and I arrived, the door was already open. Inside was the nursery, the exact crib I had searched for online. Newborn clothes. My appointment schedule. Photographs of our house taken at night. Copies of stolen mail. The false child neglect report. And on the wall were my daughters' names. Harper. Hazel. The lease was in my mother's name. She had rented the unit for 9 months. She had been building a nursery for children who were not hers while telling everyone she was simply protecting my sister. At the hearing, the evidence was overwhelming. My notebook. Medical access logs, police reports, photographs, the embroidered clothes. The storage unit, Blake testified, Detective Moss testified. Then Melissa took the stand. She saw the photograph of the nursery. Her calm expression disappeared. She pointed at the painted wall and said, "That room belongs to me." Then she screamed that my daughters were supposed to be hers. The judge ordered a full protective order against her. Melissa later accepted a plea agreement involving stalking and protective order violations, along with psychiatric treatment. Blake filed for divorce, and Travis and I left. We sold our house and moved to another city. We painted a new nursery ourselves. No clouds, no strange names, no secrets, just 2 little girls growing up in a home where nobody had to compete for love. The nursery from the storage unit was donated to a women's shelter. My mother still sends letters once a month. I don't read them. I date them. I put them away. For most of my life, I believed being the strong one was a compliment. Now I know what it really meant. It meant everyone expected me to absorb the damage so they wouldn't have to face it. The knife was terrifying. The nursery was horrifying. But neither was the most frightening part. The most frightening part was realizing that while I was busy keeping my family together, they were quietly preparing a life in which I no longer had a place. And that's the lesson I will never forget. Being strong doesn't mean allowing people to hurt you. Sometimes strength means saying no, documenting the truth, protecting your children, setting boundaries, and walking away from the people who only loved you when you were willing to sacrifice yourself for them.